Welcome to Just Bricks, brought to you by Kick It Forward and Sporting News. We've got a very special guest today. He may be a comedian first. His name's Broden Kelly. He's from Melbourne, Victoria. But I think if you were to list his highlights for his career, it wouldn't be that he's, played in front of thousands or he's, created a group that of international fame. It's his diehard support for the Philadelphia 76ers. Broden Kelly, thank you so much for joining us.
Josh, a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited that you started this ancillary pod based on NBA. I'm coming to you live from the home of Liz Cambridge, Andrew Bogut, Ben Simmons, and Josh Giddey, which at one point in time would have been a real brag, and now it's kind of a point of like, what's wrong with us?
So true. There was a brief crossover period there where, you could brag pretty highly about Melbourne. Even like Melbourne's the only city in the world with 3 number 1 draft picks, right?
Yeah. I mean, there used to be a time on Marvel Stadium. There is still a mural, and I think it's Bogut, Simmons, Cambridge, and maybe Gazy.
Right.
And Lauren, did I say Lauren? Maybe Lauren Jackson. And yeah, man, we can't feel great. I think we have Dante Exum as well. Is he from Melbourne or is he Sydney?
I believe he's from Melbourne. Yeah. No, he's definitely from Melbourne. Yeah.
That's the thing, right? It's how long is 6 months in basketball? 6 months ago, no one wanted to know Dante Exum, and now he is a starting 5 Dallas Maverick.
Now they're scrubbing off Ben Simmons off Marvel Stadium and chucking up Dante, even though they're around the same era they came out. Broden, thank you so much for joining me. I've always wanted to talk to you about basketball a little bit because I think a lot of fans of your comedy stuff or maybe your football stuff, because you have the footy with Broden Kelly, aren't aware that you're a massive basketball fan. Now, where did this love of NBA in particular, but basketball as well, come from?
Yeah, I had you on my podcast, my footy podcast, about 6 months ago, or maybe 4 months ago, before the FIBA World Cup, and we talked like it wasn't in no way entertaining. Like when you're doing footy media, you'll try and bridge the gap and make it a bit accessible for people listening. And you and I and Tom on my pod just went very deep cut on every basketball player on the Boomers side, and it was unlistenable. So I'm glad to be doing this with you. I've loved basketball since I was a wee lad. I since Space Jam, if we're being honest. I think everyone around your age or my age remembers when that came out and just coming home and wanting to play basketball. So I've loved probably basketball since then. I've played basketball. I played basketball until I wasn't any good anymore. I played okay to an okay level in basketball in Melbourne. But when in about 2000, in like grade 5 or 6 at primary school, my best friend was a huge basketball fan, and he said, I go for the Lakers and you should go for the Sixers because there's this guy called Allen Iverson. And then I just got immersed. Sure, Shadow. I got immersed in in all of just Allen Iverson at the peak of 2000, 2001. This guy who went to jail and then came back and was the best in the league. And I remember even when I was a little kid, loving the step over moment of Ty Lue in the playoffs. Like even, and him being, when you're a kid, you love in wrestling or in any sport, you love the small guy. And he was so small and he wore his clothes so baggy. So into high school, I used to wear number 3 Sixers under my school shirt every day to school and get, uniform, demerit points or whatever it was. and then we became really bad, the Sixers, for about 20 years. And when you're a kid, there's no real way to watch basketball in Australia unless you're watching like the one ESPN game, which happens to be on at some weird indeterminate time. And it was always the Lakers or Boston. So I never got to watch the Sixers. So but I kind of stayed in tune with the Sixers as they were building through 2K. And I would see these weird teams coming through of like weird players like Kanan and early Ish Smith and Nerlens Noel and Jahlil Okafor, until I had expendable cash in my early 20s and then started to fork out for League Pass, and have been a complete nuff like yourself ever since.
Well, yeah, no one could discredit your loyalty to go through like the process era and survive out the other side. And just even listing some of the names you said, like what has happened to Okafor? Like he was, such a huge prospect and he's putting up numbers in his first year. And then I don't know, is he playing in China or something?
It was, if you went by 2K metrics, he was going to be the second coming of Jesus. He was so good. His mid-range shot on 2K was the most incredible. There was 3 players, 3 talls we picked at this time. And going by 2K metrics, Jalil was the one. It was him, Nerlens Noel, and then this guy who was on the bench who never played, called Joel Embiid. And they never... He was the worst one by the metrics of 2K. He got shopped around a little bit. He was building really, really nicely for a period of time, but then just lost the plot a little bit. He ended up in the G League Delaware Bluecoats, which is the 76ers, seconds team. And I don't know where he is now. I have no idea where he is anymore. But it's something funny that happens. We see it across the board with players. As soon as they make that jump, something happens mentally, or just the jump between one league to the next is just so big, and it doesn't come. I think more than any other sport that I follow, you being a college player who's good means potentially the least. Wembanyama might be the first one in a really, really long time where the hype is kind of, you can see it leading to coming to fruition, because before that we'll look at Zion and Markelle Fultz and maybe Anthony Edwards is the only one, but yeah.
Anthony Davis had a pretty big hype. Like I remember coming into the draft, he was the clear number one and their team was so good, but you're right about that. And funny you say that about Allen Iverson. Apparently he's having trouble. He wants to come to Australia to an Australia speaking tour, which a lot of guys do. And he's really keen this year. So you might be able to meet AI this year because he's going to Melbourne. He's even come to, apparently going around the country. But that misdemeanor, that jail or prison sentence is stopping his entry. So everything's all right except one thing. Isn't that ironic though? You do your entire career.
Okay. I think he'll be okay. I think we can trust Allen Iverson not to act up. Has he ever been? I don't think there was talk for a time about a decade ago that he was going to play for the Sydney Kings at the end of his career. And it kind of became, I don't know, it could have just been NBL talk, and there's always weird teams doing weird NBL talk, but him at the Sydney Kings would have been the absolute best thing ever. I would have loved that.
Well, the NBL, someone needs to do like a history of the weirdest imports to ever arrive at the NBL, because we're in a period now where we're getting good ones and we're getting guys that potentially could still be in the NBA, but for whatever reason they've fallen out. Whereas instead of being 39-year-old players or 16-year-old players, they're sort of missing the big bump in the middle where they play pretty well. So now
do you remember Johnny Flynn?
Yeah. Where
he was like a pick 5. Yeah, and we had him 4 years after he was drafted at the Melbourne Tigers.
He didn't do too well from memory. Like he did fine. Stephen Blake
had one game, I remember. Yeah, he clutched one game and he was like, all right, here comes Johnny Flynn. And then I think he evaporated. I think he
fell into the river, the mighty Yarra River. All right, let's go through some more things about this. So who do you hate more? Or who do you love more? James Harden or Ben Simmons?
I don't know why. I still love James Harden so much. And even last year when there was so much talk about him being unwatchable, I think he's one of the most enjoyable players to watch, because it's like when you play career mode on 2K. Like it's just you get the ball and then you just sort it out yourselves. I think he's awesome. And I know he's a complete nutcase who, has bullied his way into positions. But even when he went to the Clippers the other week and I'm going to sound like LeBron here, but even though when he went to the Clippers a few weeks ago and they couldn't win a game, I knew you knew that this was going to happen. Eventually they're going to figure it out and it's going to work. I don't know how they'll go in the playoffs. Genuinely, I think it more than anything else depends on whether Kawhi is fit and Paul George is fit. Because Harden will do what Harden does, but if they don't have to rely on him, if he's the third option on offense or the fourth option on offense, they might be okay. I'm Ben Simmons. I watched every Ben Simmons game for about 6 years. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, I watched every game of his. I was obsessed with his Ben Simmons jerseys, everything Ben Simmons. And I could almost write a thesis on it if any university in Australia would let me write a thesis on it. Just it really came down to, as today it's just announced that he's not going to play. He's going to be reevaluated again in 2 weeks. He's injured again. It felt to me like someone who was just so afraid to look bad and look stupid or to be embarrassed. And it comes from a guy who has just been incredible since he was in like year 7. And we all know the guy at school who's just like so cool, but never ever dares to put himself in an area that would make him look a bit stupid. And he was so, there was a period, I don't know if you remember, he was so good, man. And he said all the right things and was really cool, but he's clearly a very, very shy person and just refused. You watch it all the time now, whether it's Scotty Barnes or Tyrese Maxey or any, like, you need to be able to make mistakes and look a bit silly. And he, for whatever reason, is just crippled himself by not shooting and not being able to look a bit shit in areas. And then the worse it got, the more it became clear that all he needed to do was 1 or 2 things and he didn't do it, the worse it got. And it's just tragic. I've never been so upset at someone in my life in that period where Ben, like, was just so clear. It was so clear what needed to happen and he just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I've said this heaps of times, but it honestly feels like you're in a bad relationship and you keep saying it's the last time you'll go back, and then you do it again and again. And like, I really want it to work out. I don't think it will anymore. But you know what? When there's a 10-game run where he has 20 points or something, I'll be back in. And when he's if he's at the Olympics and he buys in and is all about it, I'll be back in as well. Also, my prediction for the World Cup didn't go too well. I said they're going to win gold or at least silver. They didn't. They crumbled. So it's going to be an interesting year next year as well for the Boomers. I just want to stay a little bit on the 76ers. You had a world tour recently. You spent a lot of time in the US. Was there much crossover with the NBA? Did you peel off to go to some 76ers games? What was that whole experience like?
Our tour finished while preseason was happening, and we were in Philadelphia when Philly was playing in Boston, and we were in Boston when they were playing in Philly, like each other. Because I'm a 76ers fan, and I'm lucky that I support a team with one of the most batshit crazy general managers in the NBA, in Daryl Morey.
Your best mate.
If you're my best mate. So if you're not familiar with Daryl Morey, he is essentially the reason that I don't know if you're familiar with the nation of China, but they boycotted the NBA because he put a post up saying free Hong Kong. And so China said, we're boycotting the NBA. And they all supported Houston because of fucking hell, I'm blanking.
Yeah, I mean, in Trace McGrady era.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And so he got in a fair bit of trouble for that. But he's a guy who is just obsessed with alternative thinking, really. Like, for a while, his display picture is the GM of a fucking NBA organization, and his photo was an NFT. He goes to esports tournaments. Anyway, when my group Aunty Donna, when our Netflix show came out, I was just scrolling Twitter one day and I just saw you have a new follower, Daryl Morey. I was like, why is he following an alternative fucking sketch comedy group from Australia? And so I messaged him and I was like, hey, nice to meet you. And he's like, yeah, I love comedy. I was like, Jesus Christ. So like flash forward a few years. And I asked him to come on the footy pod and he goes, sure, I'll organize it with my people. And so all of a sudden I'm in correspondence with the Sixers organization directly, like the head of media going, and they're like, what are you going to talk to him about? And I'm like, oh, probably like Hawthorn's disposal efficiency and should Tassie get an AFL team? And they're like, okay, that's fine, obviously. And then, so I'm gearing up. It's going to be a Wednesday morning in Melbourne at 6 a.m. is the time. So Tom and I are going to get up at fucking 5 a.m, go to our studio and record this thing. And it's Monday night and I'm going to bed and I'm like, can't wait till Wednesday morning. And then all of a sudden someone sends me a link to a tweet. And it's James Harden in China going, Daryl Morey is a liar and I will not be part of any organization that he's a part of. And I was like, this is either really good for my podcast because I've got an exclusive with the most famous person in the world right now, or I'm going to get an email when I wake up tomorrow morning. And I got an email, which I'm going to have framed, which is from the Sixers organization just saying, hi, Broden, Daryl would like to reschedule.
It's your Jordan email. I'm back. It says, I would like to reschedule.
Yeah. Just so and I know it's my closest I've ever been to a world, like to an NBA shattering moment. And so like when we did our shows in Philadelphia, I emailed him. I was like, if anyone would like to come to our shows, you're more than welcome. And they were like, oh, thank you. We're all in Boston. Have a good one. I was like, yeah, fair. I don't think you'd like the show anyway. But so I didn't get to see any NBA. I did go to Mitchell and Ness and buy about $300 worth of merchandise, which is what you got to do. But when we lived in LA as well, I got to go to, it was days before COVID happened, but we got through the Netflix, we got a corporate suite for the Sixers versus the Clippers at Staples Center at the time. And that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Just the best food and felt very, very baller.
That's lit.
That's my cool American NBA stories. I also you don't realize the two things about going to NBA games in America is one, the variation in price. Like for a crappy seat on Christmas Day to see the Lakers Clippers in 2020 was like $300 each or something absurd. And then you can go to a game in Portland. If you happen to be in Portland for a Knicks Portland game or something like that, you'll pay $20 for almost courtside seats. It's like the capitalism of America. And then the other thing is the resale industry in America is the most horrible, horrible, horrible thing.
It's fucked.
And you never know. Yeah, it's all, and everyone's kind of implicit in it. It's in Ticketmaster or whoever's, StubHub's taking a cut from it. And so you're just price gouged and it's like, it's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah, there's something in the economy of tickets at NBA games. Because the NFL has the variation too, but it's just such a popular sport. I always found that interesting when we were in Portland, for instance, and we're looking at the prices of games. You could go for $10 or $15 as a while ago now, or more recently, trying to find a ticket in Atlanta compared to LA in the peak LeBron was like $1,000 a ticket. But you could really fly to the other city and potentially watch him. Yeah. For a percentage. I always think that's crazy about the US. So I was just going to say too, what have you made of Nick Nurse? So Nick Nurse has come in. He's kind of like, he's the sort of coach that gets hired and then everyone's sort of gushing over how smart this guy is. He's a guy that, he went through England to coach and, he is a basketball purist. It really does feel like this year though that you paid unders for one of the best coaches in the comp because his former team were kind of scrambling of ways to make this team work.
Well, the first thing I realized as soon as he started coaching was that the Sixers haven't had a coach for about a fucking decade. Doc Rivers is a bad coach and he's bad at coaching. And then before him, Brett Brown, with his Melbourne and Australia ties, is an absolute gun and a really great player developer. And he's doing it he's in charge of Wembanyama from all accounts now. He's a fucking brilliant, brilliant coach, but he's not a strategist. So you just realize that Embiid has never had a good coach who knows what he's doing. And also, it's a nice year because we have not a huge amount of dramas. It's a nice thing to say that the only real drama is that Kelly Oubre got hit by a car. That's for the 76ers. That's quite a nice soft year. And he's back playing again, and there's no mystery, and he can still shoot. The dramas that have gone through the Sixers organization you could make a 1930 for 30s about. But Nick Nurse is a brilliant coach. This is my favorite roster and coach in watching the Sixers ever. even better than the 2000s team in that. And it's because it's a bunch of role players. And then more than anything else, hang on.
Yeah, all good.
It's this man here has become
that's so shittily, that's so badly
in the
together.
world. So a fan in Philadelphia brought me a signed picture of Tyrese Maxey that she'd gotten. And I've framed it now and I have it in my room and I sit in my little corner and watch my basketball and watch Tyrese Maxey. He is so magical to watch. Obviously Embiid, I know he's very divisive for a lot of people if they don't follow the Sixers, but he's going to be the leading point scorer 3 years consecutively. He's a fucking gun. He does get a lot of fouls, but people foul him. So I don't know what people want. Maxey, though, is the most enjoyable player, maybe one of the most enjoyable athletes I've ever seen play basketball or any sport. He's just positive, happy, and he just keeps improving. He is the antithesis of Ben Simmons. Is every year he builds and grows and is positive and he's happy to talk. So, like, he's almost the core of this really positive team. It feels a bit Collingwood Football Clubby, and that it's just a group of people who have bought in, really, really happy, really cool new coach. It's incredible vibes. We're sitting third seed, and the games we've lost, I'm not too worried about, and I'm not afraid of Boston for the first time watching basketball. I love this. Like Kelly Oubre Jr. we got for $14. DeAnthony Melton is a role playing cool guy. Our backup center is Paul Reed, who's also really cool. Who else? And then out of nowhere, I heard from all these Clippers fans that Batum was just legit no good. Nico Batum. Nick Batum is awesome.
He is. He's just really old. Like I think there were periods with the Clippers where, you know, they couldn't not play him. Like he was just too smart on court, and he's a veteran. And I think what a good pickup. And that's what the sort of guy like Nick Nurse would have been all in on. And Daryl Morey would have seen the benefit beyond the superficial viewer of watching Nick Batum. No, he was so good for so long. Like he was amazing. Like he was a stat. Like he would fill up every part of the stat sheet for a long period of time. I just find it so nuffy and awesome that you have a fan in comedy that knew their way in to get to you to leave a lasting legacy was assigned to Tyrese Maxey. Photo.
Usually after our shows, there's people who doorstop you at the stage door, and you're like, oh yeah, sign. And then someone brought me this, and I was like, I'm going to talk to you for an hour. I'm like in love with you.
It's in your living room right now.
He's got a bit of Joe Ingles about him, and like people write off Joe Ingles and say he's slow and old and looks like he should work at a Video Easy, which is all fair. But then Orlando, having someone like him in the team, everything rises with it, with that player. Like Joe Ingles could potentially play for another 2-3 years.
The other good thing is, you know, they're potentially a playoff team, and Joe Ingles is going to feature in that really heavily. And from all reports, they're absolutely loving him. So he's sneaky the most exciting Australian outside of Dante Exum's current run in 2023-24, even though because Josh Giddey has his oin issues. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with Joe Ingles in Orlando.
We got to get Paddy off Atlanta. He's not getting minutes.
Yeah, but would he get minutes elsewhere? Like, I know he would, but like, it feels like a bad situation for him right now. It's just a lot of undersized guards, and he can't even find his way onto the court.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of demand.
Broden, what's your plan for basketball over the summer? Are you going to play some 3-on-3 tournaments? Are you going to any NBL? Are you guys are in town right now filming some sketches? What's the plan?
Have you talked on this pod about you playing basketball much?
No, not at all. But like, I know that was the first time you sort of, I used to play a little bit, but my brother played a lot of basketball, and you came down to watch us play a Red Bull comp. I
want to tell the audience, because I knew Josh through sketch comedy. And so as a general rule, if you're good at sketch comedy, you're not good at sport. And I'd always gone like, I can play basketball, but I'm no good. Like I'm too short, I'm too slow, and I can't shoot. So I assumed the same of Josh, and I knew he's a bit tall, so I thought, okay, well, he can rebound and pass. So I went down to this Red Bull tournament and watched Josh play. And there was all these like influencers there and people from America and like really cool looking basketballers. And then all these dorks, including Josh, came over from Perth, these spindly spindly white boys, and they won, or like you guys came runner-up to another lanky Perth team.
Yeah, we beat
and
the
so
Perth
Josh,
team in Perth, yeah. We missed out on a trip to Serbia.
Knocking down mid-ranges and just no crossing over, just dribbling really safely and like getting nice rebounds. Just beat all the influences. I just want to put it out there for anyone who's still listening to this. Josh is an incredible basketballer, and you show up to courts and regularly play very, very well against anyone.
No, I just played a lot growing up. Like I played a lot, played at an okay level, and then you learn how to play, and then
but so did everyone else. But you're actually good. Like there's a bunch of me's walking around the world who are shit at sport, who played their whole teenage and childhood. Like, but you're actually good.
Yeah, it's also like you're told your whole life you're shit because your brother is really good. So then you go to these things and you're like, oh man. It's pretty good to win some games. And you're right, we were the widest dudes. In fact, it got to the point, it was the finals, and we were in the final against the other Perth team. And all the promo videos afterwards had no footage of us because no one with a videographer were filming us because we were just doing layups.
Yeah.
And because they didn't want the sunburnt older dudes. But no, I still love it. So, and as you do, it's such a fun sport, and it's been great to follow. And Broden, I'm excited to follow the 76ers journey vicariously through you, just through your random comments and tweets about it. Best of luck for this season. They're playing the Timberwolves today. This is going to come out a bit later. But I have really high hopes, and hopefully they don't blow up the special thing they've got going on right there, right now.
Thank you. Can I get how do you feel about us for the Olympics next year?
Oh, quickly, World Cup. I'm probably less positive now. I'm a bit worried about the Giddy stuff. We've got Chris Anstey later on today to talk about, and he's really close. He coached him at under 20s. If they can sort that out, if they can sort the sort of the balance of the roster thing out, it seemed like it was a bit unbalanced at the World Cup. It felt like a lot of wasted Ingles and Mills possessions. They need to sort out who's the dominant player. What do you think?
I think you could go. I think Duop Reith playing for Portland and being so good is the best thing that could have happened for the Boomers, because I did not rate any of our other talls. Or Jock Landale needs to not get injured. Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, between Jock and Duop, it'd be fantastic if they're both healthy and both there. But they don't have that traditional center like a Bogut or a Baines. Yeah. So
like Matisse wasn't great in the World Cup, and he was so fantastic in the Olympics, which really, really worries me. But like they could just be building for next year. I'd fucking love to see Ben, because he would actually be a really good small five or a really good four for that team.
Yeah.
But I am very worried as well. But
it might
here's my hot take.
Okay. Make it hot.
Got to get Josh off the Thunder. Got it. He's the fourth, fifth option. Get him out.
Why? You want him to have 20 and 9 or something as like the number 2 player in the team rather than number 4?
100%. He's behind SGA, who is going to potentially be one of the 1 or 2 best players in the league. He's then behind Chet, who is going to be the best tall in the league. He's then behind, and then it starts to become Dort and everyone else. And they want him to be the playmaking facilitator, but he's not even that first option for that. Like SGA has the ball 80% of the time. I think for his development, like we see how he is on the Boomers, I'd love to see him like that in the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the ball more in his hands where he can actually create. And I guess he's going to get better. And I don't know. It is a hard one because part of me is like, well, it's this young team you're going to grow with. But the other side of it is all his best assets as a player are kind of being removed. Sometimes, and he's sitting out important games. He's had an okay run recently. Broden, thank you so much for your time, mate. I reckon they're going to win gold. There you go. I'm going to say it already. They'll figure it out, and it'll be a Mighty Ducks situation with Dante Exum, MVP of the tournament.
It's ours to lose.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks so much, mate, and best of luck. That's Just Bricks. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review. It goes a long way. Have a good one.